Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live stream event on the Scribe Light channel. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone has had a good weekend so far, and a good Sunday in particular. Before I started, thank you, Atitos Eternal. Good morning, Scribe. Good morning, Atitos. See, I usually say Atheos, and I know that's incorrect. Did I say it right this time? Atitos or Athitos? Anyway, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this mystery tour of another panel discussion regarding diversity in business. And if you need evidence that this is a panel discussion about diversity in business, let me read for you the title of the presentation as given to me by YouTube: Diversity and Inclusion as a Business Imperative and Strategic Asset. Now, if that doesn't sound like the most corporate speak thing you've heard today, then I don't know what to tell you. I haven't seen this. It runs for about half an hour, so it's one of the shorter ones that I've done before. So we'll find out together, as we do on most of these live streams, the mysteries and vicissitudes of diversity and inclusion in business. I'm hoping, unlike most of these, and most things in general, that they'll actually tell us how they hire for diversity, what the mechanisms are, what they actually do. I'd love to find out. But let's see. Let's say hello to the people who have come out on a Sunday morning to say hello. Atitos Eternal, the Useless Rebel, hello. Duck Dog, hello. Somnambulation, hello. Cultist 4, hello. Kieferdam, hello. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. The Gayest Person on YouTube, hello. Reason Vision, hello. Zombie Teddy, hello. Richo8181, Rico8181, hello. Big Assassin 80, hello. TC, hello. The Original Shroom, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Corwin D, hello. One Ton Hammer, hello. Daryl Parnas, hello. Fairly Becca, hello. Havoc Vladimirovich Stalinov, hello. Atheist Icon, hello. Red Chaos Tree, hello. Rotten Corpse, hello. Oh my gosh, so many people. I hope you're having a good break. Morning Scribe Chat. Yep, for those of you not in the know, I have taken the previous week off from the Lords of the Night stream. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's going on. I just needed to change the routine a little bit and take a bit of a mental break. And truth be told, I'm kind of maybe slightly regretting it, given the week I chose to take off with the impeachment and the State of the Union and the debate, because all that stuff's very interesting to me. But I think in the end, it was probably better for my overall take a deep breath mentally kind of thing, because I had a very busy end of month on January with work. And so not having to come home for a few days and bustle through the nonsense that is CNN and the news is probably better for me in the long run. Renovatio, hello. And I think that's everybody. If I missed anybody, I will do another round at the end of the stream and in between, depending on what goes on. But anyway, guys, let's get right to it. So, per usual, I'm going to play the first few seconds of the video to ensure that I got the sound going correctly. Please tell me, give me some feedback in the chat if you can hear it. If it's too loud, I can turn it down. I have enhanced the audio to try to make up for any quiet that was the original recording. But I can only turn it down. So if you can't hear it at this point, or it's not that loud, I can't do much. Manic, hello. TC, hello. All right, so here we go, guys. Give me some feedback. Can you hear this?
Thank you all for being here. And this is going to be an interactive discussion. We're going to...
Okay, so interactive discussion. Can you guys hear that? Give me some heads up on the chat. Audio is good, says Reason Vision. Sounds good, says Somnambulation. Zombie Teddy, Duck Dog, Kiefer. Unfortunately, Duck Dog. All right. Okay, guys. So who do we have here? We have Tara Ginta or Ginta, partner Paul Hastings LLP. I don't know what Paul Hastings LLP is, but are they in Hawaii? And I only asked that because it looks like she's wearing a lei. So it's possible they're in Hawaii. I don't know anything about this stream other than the title. So it'll be a mystery to me as it is for you. Let's find out together.
Save about 10 minutes at the end for your questions. So please be prepared, because this should be a very interactive conversation about a critical topic, which is diversity and inclusion writ large and in the tech and related industries.
Oh boy, diversity and inclusion in tech. My favorites. I can't wait. Let's see where we go.
So thanks to Gina and Amy for being with us. And I guess where I'd like to start is, historically, the tech sector has been viewed as largely male.
I don't know if it's been viewed as largely male so much than it is largely male. Now, of course, you can fill in the gaps of that fact with the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis and just say, well, it's largely male because of sexism, which is a possibility, I suppose, if you want to go for simple answers. Or it could be, God forbid, the result of individual choices. But we'll continue.
And male-dominated, and you're two senior executive women in the industry.
Wait, two senior executive women in the industry? But how is that possible? I mean, obviously the systematic exclusion of women would have made that not happen, right?
Kind of give us your sense of what your experience has been and where that sits today, and what are some of the challenges. Gina, let me start with you.
Well, I think you should take a look around the room. I mean, it's interesting because I thought this topic would draw a lot more women. I've been coming to PTC for about 20 years now. And
so, wait, a panel discussion about diversity and inclusion in the workplace didn't draw a lot of women? Huh. Are you saying that a bunch of women chose not to attend this? Well, golly, that's interesting.
And I have to say that there has been a dramatic difference in...
Oh, wait. Well, sorry. I almost missed where she's from. Let me back up slightly. I didn't catch her title.
About 20 years now. And I have to say that there has been a dramatic difference.
Vice President, Open Connect Partner Management, Netflix. Okay. So we have Hastings LLP, whatever that is. Sounds like maybe I don't know, consulting firm, and Netflix. All right.
In the makeup demographically of who attends PTC. But at the same time, I think that, the issue around women in technology is very much the responsibility of the men that are already in technology. And
oh, okay. So it's the responsibility of men to put women into technology. So by that reasoning, everybody in the audience who's not a woman needs to go outside, grab the nearest woman, and pull her into this discussion. Because they're not going to do it on their own, obviously. They don't know what's good for them. Right?
Their support and becoming allies to change some of the perceptions on the value that women add. So in one instance, it's I know how many women are attending the conference. There aren't that many here in this room, but
it's almost like they're not interested. So you're going to press gang them into the conference or into your particular discussion to solve the problem? But we're not even 2 minutes into this, and already there is an active living example counterpoint to what I assume is going to be some of the theories they have as to why things are the way they are. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. A couple of late hellos. Chicago Mike, hello. M, hello. Pink Hollow, the driving ape man, hello. The next 6 minutes, hello. Grillin' Pirate Pete, hello. And all right, let us continue.
On the other hand, it's really good to see that the topic is drawing a lot of male participants who I think can make a dramatic difference.
Yeah, let's try to make lemonade out of these lemons here, right? The women didn't show up, but it is important that all the men showed up, because the men are paying attention and the women aren't. which means the women need the men's help to pay attention. Devil Fruit Zero, hello. This is Kyle, hello. Kay Shull, hello.
And so I've never been in the, I've never been in the industry where I felt as though there was some level of discrepancy between the men and women. It's just a lack of representation.
There's a level of discrepancy right now. There's more men in the room than women on a panel about empowering women. That's the discrepancy. Oddly enough, the men showed up and the women didn't. What is that? I'm dying to know inside this woman's mind what that tells her, what she thinks that tells her.
Was pretty much obvious.
Amy, let me kick it over to you, but I do want to pick up on why that is, what we can do to change it.
Sure. I mean, I think most people know I'm fairly outspoken about how I feel on diversity and inclusion.
All right.
And I always say,
sorry, Amy Marks, Chief Executive, CEO, Excite Modular. Excite. I don't know. I've heard of Netflix, haven't heard of the other ones. Excite, I'll look that up.
it's not about looking across the table and seeing more women or younger people or more diverse, people that look of different color.
It isn't? It's not? Okay, if it's not about seeing more women or people of color or younger people, wait, are you going to be one of the rare ones that say diversity of thought and not of aesthetics?
It's really about diversity in thought.
Hey! Diversity of thought. Okay, this might be our champion for this discussion. We'll see if it lasts, because I've had participants before start out strong, and then they've capitulated later on, but we'll see.
And if you don't think right now that we're in a completely insular industry, very incestuous industry, we are. We and especially in the subsea side in particular, and telecom, we're not looking to other types of industries to solve our problems. We're not putting people around the table that don't look and think the same. And I always say, I know last year on stage I said, we're sort of a pale, male, and stale industry.
Pale, male, and stale industry. Oh, lady. You were so close. You started out so perfectly. Hey, it's not about what people are across the other side of the table. It's about diversity of thought. It's about those intangible things. It's about personal merit. But now it's pale, male, and stale. Lady, make up your mind.
It's all right, Joe. You're still in my favorite people list.
Even if you are a white male, you're still one of my favorite people. Even if you are inherently flawed.
But I also say, if we were all 25-year-old Hispanic women, I would say something different. Like, it's just factual. We mostly all look the same in this space.
Why does that matter then? If it's about diversity of thought and not diversity of aesthetics, why does that matter?
And I think we are in the survival mode. If you don't recognize that, we should be in survival mode about getting more diversity and thought into the industry.
Whoa, diversity and thought? Okay, lady, you got mixed messages left, right, and center here. First, it's not about diversity of gender and race and age. It's about diversity of thought. Now it's diversity and thought in a pale, male, and stale industry. All over the map. Thank you, Manic, so much for a Dog Cat Fox. Oh, I miss Dog Cat Fox. Dog Cat Fox lives with me on my moon base, if you don't know. Dog Cat Fox. Thank you, Manic. And thank you for your pieces of art over the last several days. I always appreciate those. Let's see. Who do we got? Tim Berry. Hello. Diversity of thought. So long as they are my thoughts. Well, we haven't gotten to that point yet necessarily, but we've already had mixed messages. Like I said, I was, as soon as she spoke, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be my Margie Lee Johnson. And if you guys don't remember who Margie Lee Johnson was, several panel discussions back, she was the one lady on the panel who never wavered from the notion that diversity equates to diversity of actually thought and experience and ideas. she was the one saving grace of the entire deal. I have yet to find another Margie Lee Johnson. I thought maybe she was the one here because she started out very flat saying it was diversity of thought, but now she's really, really muddied the waters. So let's find out.
How do we do that?
You know, it's funny. I'm impatient. Most people know that about me. I am tired of hearing about people tell me like we should go out to grade schools and high schools and we should get girls from that 11 to 13-year-old range to really like get involved in STEM programs, and how do we get them to stick with it? And yes, we need to do all of that in parallel, but
yeah, trying to get kids interested in something at a young age to see if they want to choose to do that. And then it's interesting to see what they end up choosing, right? I mean, after you've given them the knowledge that they have those options, short of actually forcing them into it or press ganging them into it, watching what choices they make as individuals in the knowledge that they have these options, and then seeing what you get as a result. It's kind of like the audience of this show, right? Everybody knew that they had the option of attending, and yet more men and very few women, as told by our panelists, attended, even though they had the option to. This is a fundamental point, which they rarely acknowledge, but we'll see. Thank you, Non-Vitae Rex. I guess she thinks women and POCs think differently than pale, stale males. That is always the implication, all right? That diversity of thought is inherently tied to your appearance, your gender, your race, your sexual orientation, your ethnicity, whatever. That a certain type of person only thinks a particular way. And when you start assigning a quality of thought to someone simply on the basis of what they look like, simply on the basis of their aesthetic appearance, or things that have absolutely nothing to say about their personal merit, yeah, that's usually the kind of thing we want to avoid, I thought. Thank you. This is Kyle. Do you think they're oblivious or disingenuous? I don't think they're disingenuous. It's rare a day that I honestly think that someone in one of these situations is not speaking from the heart after a fashion, though maybe not with the head, right? They mean what they say. And I do not believe, unless you show me evidence to the contrary, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to all of my subjects and any of the videos that I've done that at their heart, they mean to do well, all right? They have good intentions. Of course, we know the road to hell is paved with those. So in a certain respect, I think they're either drinking the Kool-Aid of cognitive dissonance in the spirit of what they think is a moral good, right? The intention of the moral good of what they're saying overrides the actual critical analysis of what it is they are suggesting or what it is they actually are doing. I don't know if that made any sense. I was babbling there a little bit. I'm not scripting this or anything. So that's my overall thought on it. Okay.
There are women in this industry right now that are in different roles that we need to start highlighting. And we need to, if your company, and I think we're actually right now a bit too internal focused on our own companies. So it's like if you only have women at a certain level and you're trying to grow them and get them to a certain point, that's great. But guess what? There are women out there that are CEOs, that are vice presidents, that you should be hiring to work with, that you should be interacting with so that the women in your company can actually see what a woman CEO looks like.
I think a woman CEO looks like themselves. I think if you're targeting people for knowledge and experience on the basis of their gender and for no other reason, I mean, she just said women CEOs, women executives. I mean, any other qualifications necessary? Or are we not talking about diversity of thought here? Because simply being a woman CEO does not mean you are successful. And I'll give you two big examples. Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm and Carly Fiorina formerly of HP. These were two high-level senior executives, CEO, president, whatever, of giant companies. And yet at every critical point in the downfall of their careers, they made bad decisions and had bad outcomes. Now, that's not because they were women. That's because they, as individuals, made bad choices. The same as any man could have done, because we're not talking about quality of thought determined by chromosomes. Apparently, I'm also told that Monkey is streaming right now, because Monkey never, he just, yeah. I'm not going to suggest anybody go over to Monkey's stream right now and shame him for trying to, hone in on my show. It's fine. No, it's fine. I'm not hurt at all. I expect this from him. It's fine. But, if you feel inclined to go tell him and tell Monkey that Scribe said hello, that's it. Just say Scribe said hello. I don't want anything. I don't want any vitriol. I don't want there to be any. I actually don't want there to be any shame. No, just say Scribe says hi from his live show. Just that'd be enough, I think. All right, moving on.
What a woman negotiator looks like. And I've been at those tables, and they are not used to seeing a woman at those tables. What a woman in manufacturing looks like. There are plenty of us here right now that we could start highlighting and doing a little bit more, so that those girls, when they look at this industry, see people that look like them. Because we could do all the programming we want when they're 13, 20 years from now. If you don't see women at the top, they're not staying.
Okay, so again, we're looking at if I don't see a quote-unquote role model that quote-unquote looks like me, I cannot believe that I have the possibility of ever being in that role. Right? So what you're saying is that all the children have to be inherently sexist to not believe they can't be something without a role model. Well, how did the first female astronaut end up where she was, since there weren't any female astronauts before her? How? I mean, presumably she had an interest in science and space before becoming an astronaut, because she was exposed to those things as a child and gained an interest in them and pursued them to the nth degree because she chose to. So it's not enough to open the door to kids at younger ages that they have the possibility of pursuing these interests, but you also have to highlight or install people into positions simply on the basis of their genitals in order to push that forward? What are you proposing here? Thank you, Serenity Lonus, for the little devil. Appreciate it.
And the one thing I'm going to say, which is off topic, but I was asked after the last panel to slow down for the non-native English speakers. So
I'm the New
just
Yorker.
because she's a New Yorker, which is super fast. So I'm just going to say, sorry,
Good
Gina,
point.
let me kick it over to you.
Yeah, speak slower, everyone, because people who don't understand English will understand it better if you go slower, I guess. I don't know. And again, I'm assuming I don't know where this took place. I'm assuming it's in Hawaii. That's just my guess. I could be wrong.
No, I was going to say that, I feel as though I work for a company who's done that. And so, for us, it's more a matter of inclusion than it is diversity. And all of the initiatives that we have and that we're working throughout the company tends to be oriented around how do we create an environment and a culture that is inclusive. And exactly what does inclusion mean?
Yeah, I do wonder what inclusion means if I'm reading her title correctly, that she works for Netflix, when they have an initiative at Netflix called Strong Black Lead. They don't have initiatives, so far as I know, called Strong Asian Lead or just Strong Lead, like quality of writing. They have to put a component in there specifically of a racial component. So presumably, they're putting an emphasis on projects and directors and writers and actors, etc., based around a singular racial component. So how inclusive a notion is that at Netflix, I wonder?
Representation is fine, but you know, you want an environment and you want to put a culture in place, and it has to be from the top down. It's not a grassroots effort. We've tried that for many years, and this is why we are where we are. And at Netflix, for example, we are very much focused on inclusion, so much that our initiatives is titled Inclusion and Diversity, not Diversity and Inclusion, because beyond representation, you want to put an environment where it's reflected. You know, the individuals and women feel reflected. When they look throughout the organization, people are present that reflect them. And
okay, so I've done a video on Netflix's diversity and inclusion culture before. It's actually a video that Netflix produced and put onto their YouTube page, but then mysteriously removed shortly after I did my video. Now, I don't know if my video had anything to do with that. They had several of these little vignettes about Netflix culture myths, and one of them was on diversity and inclusion. So I was very fortunate to be able to capture that before they privated it or deleted it. But just listen to what she's saying here. It is a top-down initiative. So there is a management decision to create a quote-unquote culture based around the reflection of people. Women, people of color, I'm assuming age, sexual orientation, and onward. Now, the question I have always had, is for someone in one of these panel discussions to describe in detail their process for hiring for diversity, for hiring for inclusion. Where in the hiring process is the gender test, is the racial test, in order to promote this reflection notion, this, I assume, quota notion? It's rare that anybody ever explicitly says that. They talk in high-minded terms, like we want a culture that reflects our user base, or something like that, right? They talk in very broad, sort of almost philosophical terms. Never, or rarely ever, there's maybe once or twice, do they actually say explicitly that they are hiring women, they're hiring people of color, they're hiring gay people, that kind of thing. You rarely hear that, because that would be tantamount to illegality if that is a test point in their hiring practices.
you also want to feel respected. You know, if you're sitting around the table and you're sharing your ideas and it doesn't resonate with your counterparts, it's not an inclusive environment.
Or you just have bad ideas. If your ideas do not resonate with your counterparts, is it because you're being discriminated against because of what you are? Or are your ideas being critically considered?
Where you feel accepted for who you are. And perhaps it's because we're in the business of entertainment. And so we like to entertain people, and the world is a very diverse place. And so,
okay, accepted for who you are is one thing. Having your ideas accepted as quality or as useful simply because you're you, that does not track. You know, I could be the nicest person in the world, and I really am, but let's say I am the nicest person in the world. I treat everybody with respect. I have no enemies. I'm kind to animals, etc. And I sit around a corporate office table and I dole out an idea to solve a problem that is absolutely useless. It's uninformed. It doesn't actually address the problem. In fact, it reflects my lack of knowledge about the situation. That idea being rejected does not then equate to me being rejected as a person. Okay. If we are going to entwine someone's sense of self with the quality of their ideas coming out, being accepted by all people around them, we're going to start having some real trouble. Okay. This is why you have to talk about merit. And someone having merit in one situation and not in another does not then devalue the person as a person. It just means that they do not have the experience or the ideas or the insight to add to that situation. Now, if you want to take that and internalize that and make that a slight against you as a person, that is your problem. It shouldn't then become the company's problem to coddle you and protect your feelings simply because whatever idea you had was not accepted.
So if you're not able to have a diverse workplace that allows you to create stories that are reflective of your members, it becomes very difficult to be successful, at least as successful as we've seen it.
I don't know that I'd want a Netflix series based around my story. My story's not that interesting. I'd want Netflix series that are based around interesting stories, written by people who are talented, that are entertaining or interesting, or hell, even trashy entertaining. But the stories of the users, what are we in Tron now?
And just a little bit of stat, I mean, 47% of our employee base are women. And this is public information.
47% of your employee base are women. Okay. Was that planned or did that just happen? Is this something to celebrate or is this an example of selective hiring? I don't know, but let's applaud that, I guess, because it's as close to parity as you're going to get in the corporate world.
But go up through the
Right,
ranks.
so 44% of our leadership, which is vice president and above, Netflix tends to be a very flat organization, 44% are women.
Okay, so 47% of your whole employee base are women. Your senior management, executive level are 44% women. Okay, so Netflix is in statistical terms a 50-50 split, plus or minus, margin of error, men and women. Was that a natural outgrowth of those who came and applied for jobs and who qualified on the basis of their merits? Or was that planned? Because if it's planned, if it's structured that way, if it's manufactured to be that way, I'm not quite sure it's something to applaud because it does not reflect a natural outgrowth of simply talent and merit, but simply reflects the gender imperative of the company. And that's not an accomplishment. That's just a result.
That's great.
And then if you look at our board, a third of our board are women. And I think hence the reason why for us, it's about inclusion.
By the way, I don't know if you know Netflix, not such a successful company, just for the record.
Yeah, right.
I don't know, you may have heard of them, maybe not, but these are the stats we're talking about of one of the most successful companies in the world.
Yeah, so obviously the success of Netflix comes from the genitals of those who work there. I mean, that is what you're saying here, is that Netflix's success is based on the genitals of the people behind the scenes that no one is seeing. That the content being produced by Netflix, the availability of movies that weren't made by Netflix, the marketing, the availability, the technology, all that stuff that no usual random everyday user actually ever sees who's behind the scenes. All of that success is the result of genitals. Okay, well, if you're going to give credit to the genitals of some of Netflix's employees, you're going to have to give, what, 56% of the credit, and 53% of the credit, and 2/3% of the credit on the various levels of employees at Netflix on the basis of their genitals. So the majority of success at Netflix is the result of men. I mean, that is what I have to take away from that comment if I'm to believe how she thinks the world works.
That just put out an article that they hire more women directors than anybody. So raise your hand if you think there's a business benefit to getting more diverse.
Of course.
Raise your hand.
I'm not going to raise my hand. Okay. The success of a company is not based on genitals. Okay. Unless you are a porno company, the genitals of the people working there are irrelevant next to the quality of ideas, experience, and merit of the people there, regardless of their genitals. If Netflix was as successful with half the women there, would you be making the same claim? Or would you be saying that Netflix is sexist and not even talking about their success? I'm not going to be, if I were in the audience, I'm not going to be guilted into agreeing, yeah, well, gosh, Netflix is successful. That must be because 44% of the workforce is women, or 47%. That must be just because you say so. It's the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. There is a disparity, therefore sexism, or there is a disparity, therefore success versus the alternative.
Not everybody always raises their hand for that.
I can't imagine why. Maybe they think for themselves.
We making this connection. This is not really that. You don't have to be the rocket scientist to make that connection.
No, you're right. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to make that connection. You just need to be a simpleton to make that assumption. You're correct. You got me.
Right?
Right.
Well, it's interesting too, because you talk about the business case, which I remember. So on the tables, hopefully, and in the back of the room, there's just a one-pager. It's on a report that we put out called Breaking the Glass Ceiling, Women in the Boardroom. We put it out for about 7-8 years now. We look at about 45 countries and how they approach the issue of trying to achieve gender diversity at the senior-most levels of companies, and hopefully pushing that back down.
I can only imagine that to achieve gender diversity at senior levels, they're having to hire people on the basis of their gender, or they're having to select or elect or promote people on the basis of their gender. Because once you start making the question a gender imperative, you'll always have to wonder, is someone there simply because they have the correct genitals? If that is the kind of suspicion and morale situation you want to create at your company or your organization, well, more power to you. But for the sake of your legal situation, I hope you never get caught actually having to admit that's what you did.
It's interesting, when we started that report, the pushback was the business case. Well, we're all we got to worry about the bottom line and achieving. Now, at least there are sufficient data out there about the correlation between diversity, writ large, diversity and performance and corporate performance.
Yes.
Yeah, there's correlation, I guess. Is there causation? Because correlation without causation, well, that is kind of where it all falls apart, doesn't it? I mean, at present, we'll never know, if we're basing everything on genitals, whether Netflix could be 1/3, 1/2, 200% more successful than it is now if there were no women there. Right? But Netflix is really, really successful. Is that because of women, or is that because it was one of the first to try the business model that it has and has perfected it over years? Does that have anything to do with women? Or does that just have to do with opportunity and luck and a little know-how? I don't know. But we have correlation.
Are you guys seeing, just in your worlds, maybe not at Netflix, but in the industry, that you're still having to make that business case?
I wish we weren't. I will say, look, I'm in a subset of a subset of a subset. So I'm in tech, in construction, and in the infrastructure side of building things. I'm the girl that builds stuff, right?
Are you the girl that builds stuff? Because it sounds like you're not really an expert on anything, jack of all trades, and that's fine, you know. But here's the other thing too: if at this late date, with all of this success you guys are talking about, all these success stories, you're quote unquote still having to make the business case. Why? Why are you still having to make the business case? Shouldn't you be able to point to column A and column B and say, this is a direct result of this? Or do you have correlation, but you do not have causation? Are you still having to argue this theory because you cannot prove it? Is that it by any chance?
So, and I feel like it's unfortunate, but it really isn't trickling down to that level. It is unfortunate because I think we did a study actually at Suboptic to understand where the baseline is right now, and most of the CEOs in that space tend to be male.
And that matters. Why? I thought we were talking about diversity of thought. Why is that important? Or again, are you assigning a quality of thought or even a quality of humanity to someone on the basis of their gender? Yeah, just curious.
Not necessarily white, because we're very diverse and around the world.
Oh, but I mean, they maybe not white, but they're still men, right? I mean, that is really the problem. They may not all be white, but they're still men.
But they're not only do most of them think that they don't understand the business case for diversity and inclusion, they also have no idea where to start.
Is it that they don't understand the business case, or you have not shown correlation and causation? If someone presents me with a theory that has no proof, is it that I don't understand the case being made, or a bad case is being made?
So there is a bit of education that we think when you're talking about people like Netflix, they are fairly educated. They're talking about they understand the difference between inclusion and diversity. You have people out there that actually don't have the 101 that really get it yet, and that's sad, because we are an industry that could do better.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad when you try to describe to someone a system that doesn't seem to make any sense in the pragmatic terms, but does make sense in the moral terms, as long as you're willing to look the other way on either the law or logic or the actual numbers. As long as you're willing to ignore reality and believe, well, then you're a good person.
And even at Netflix, I think that you'll come across individuals who will not, they're real technical people, so they want to see the proof, right? So where's the statistics associated with that diversity? It results in better performance.
Yeah, God, asking for proof? No. Technical people asking for proof, asking for the statistics, asking for the evidence of an argument? No, that's wrong thinking. I cannot wait to hear what she says next as her counterpoint to that.
Right? So, and hence the reason why we have to put programs in place to at least hold up the mirror and help people understand their unconscious bias.
Oh! What, you want proof? What, you want evidence that what we say and the initiatives that we're putting forward actually produce results? You want proof? I think you need to examine yourself for your unconscious bias. I think you need to ask yourself, am I doubting the great leader? I really think you need to do some self-interrogation on why you just won't believe. Listen and believe. Don't ask for proof. Asking for proof, that's doubt. And doubt is a sin.
Right? So we try to think of diversity in terms of the stats and the numbers, and that's easy to get to. And you
Is it? Is it easy to get to? Because you guys have talked about correlation. You have not talked about causation. You just said that people asking for proof need to be put into a program to examine their unconscious bias. Could this sound more 1984?
you could have as diverse of a population of employees as possible, but it doesn't mean that your business results are going to change.
Whoa, wait a second. Did we just, did a switch just flip in her head? Because she just gave the exact opposite to what they've been claiming the whole time. The business case is you get better results with diversity. And now she just said you could have the most diverse workforce and nothing's going to improve. Well, which is it? Okay, somebody asked before, are they oblivious or are they disingenuous? I don't think they're disingenuous. I think that the inescapable conflict between proof versus belief, the asking of proof and the determination to push a belief, they can't escape it. I mean, they're not so zealotous that they can just dismiss reality, but occasionally reality bumps up against the belief system and they can't avoid it. And they paint themselves into a corner cognitively. And we get results like this.
So the inclusion piece of it is very important. We have the woman, Renee, who runs IND for us. I mean, the way that she describes it, she says, diversity is about being invited to the party.
Oh, I've heard this so many times. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Yes. It's a really great metaphor. I don't know exactly what it means as far as proof towards making your argument, but it's a very pretty metaphor.
Okay. Inclusion is about being asked to the dance.
Yeah. I haven't heard that before. Oh, I have.
And some will go even further and say
inclusion means going home with the prom queen. For some reason, The Rock, not the person, the movie with Sean Connery suddenly came to my head. Losers always complain about the best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
Inclusion is about being invited to plan the party.
Yeah.
And so you really have to kind of rid yourself or find a way to get a culture that rids itself of this unconscious bias.
Oh, God, yes. Cleanse your minds of negative thoughts. Stop being a suppressive person. Are you a disbeliever? Stop being a disbeliever. If you're asking for proof, well, we have a program for that to get you past such pessimism.
These are beliefs.
Right.
And
that everybody has.
Yes, that everyone has. And
beliefs. Oh, yeah, the beliefs that contradict the beliefs we have. We believe diversity equals success. If you believe otherwise, you're wrong. We have a program for that.
And exactly.
Right.
Everyone has. It's not limited to, let's say, men. I mean, women have these unconscious biases as well. And
what? But how? How can women have unconscious biases? I mean, they don't, right? Otherwise, why wouldn't they attend your panel? Oh.
It's the dialogue that's needed in order to create that environment.
And so the unconscious bias, which gets very much into the inclusion piece, because you need to break that down in order to create the culture that we all want and that we're striving to achieve.
Yes, you need to break down the unconscious bias. Unconscious bias was maybe beliefs that counter your own beliefs. So we have to break down those beliefs in order that everybody conform to the way we think. It just sounds so insidious if you consider what they're saying for a moment, doesn't it?
How has unconscious bias training actually been rolled out at Netflix, for instance?
Yeah, for us, we don't label it unconscious bias training.
Yeah, that'd be too obvious. People might then be suspicious of it. We give it some fancy name. I wonder if she's going to tell us what the fancy name is.
For example, it resonated in things like ERGs, employee resource groups, that we have put in place. There are
ERGs, employee resource groups, where we split people up on the basis of very specific categories. Depends on the company you're looking at, but and they will alter the title of these things a little bit, but they're all the exact same. They're support groups. They are networking groups, but they are categorized by very specific elements. So you could have an ERG for your homosexual employees. You could have an ERG for your Black employees. You could have an ERG for your East Asian employees. You could have an ERG for your veteran employees, as in military veterans, and on and on and on. And so you group everybody up by very specific elements of their makeup. And this is a sort of supposed to be a showing that the company understands the struggles you have as a result of your name your element, right? So if you're LGBT, you have your own support group. If you're Black, you have your own support group. If you're a veteran, you have your own support group. Now the veteran part, and there's a lot of companies that have veteran groups, of all of them, of all the ones that I usually see listed, it's the one where actually having done something puts you into a group. Right? Personal experience, personal merit puts you into a support group or a resource group. Whereas most of the others, not all, but most of the others, are simply dependent on some makeup of your genetics or your sexual orientation. It's always very interesting to me when I see ERGs, employee resource groups at companies, and I look and I see, is this group based around something that the person has done? Is it a result of someone's actions? Is there inclusion in that group based on something of merit? Or they are simply put there or assigned there or offered to join such a group for no other reason than that they look the part? I'm always curious about those.
Leadership allies associated with our ERGs. And so it's about like being able to have that dialogue and be accepting the fact that you do have certain biases and understanding that it doesn't make you a bad person.
But
because you view the world a certain place, you know? I mean, if you're in a global business, by definition, you have certain biases rooted in the culture in which you were raised. And so...
But you just told us that unconscious biases are what cause people to ask for proof. I mean, I could rewind, I'm not going to, but you're talking about the technical people at your company who are asking for proof, asking for statistics about the argument that diversity and inclusion equates to better performance or better outcomes. And your first response to that notion is to tell us that you have programs in place to try to dismantle unconscious bias or do away with unconscious bias. And yet everybody has unconscious bias. But you were specifically talking about the unconscious bias of asking for proof. There's nothing unconscious about asking for proof, but that's how you categorized it. So is unconscious bias a bad thing? Or is it something that needs to be corrected out of your employees who ask questions? Which is it?
I don't know how many of you have read the book. It's The Culture Map, is the book by Erin Meyer. I mean, if you read it, it's not applicable to gender diversity or gender disparity, but it's very much rooted in the fact that we all have unconscious biases, and the way in which you communicate, if you were a high context versus low context culture, makes you who you are. And
Wait. High context versus low context culture. Okay, maybe I'm forgetting something. I'm not even sure I know what that means, honestly. I'm sincerely, I don't know what that means. I know that I've heard those terms before.
understanding that.
Well, and I found, to that point, I found that unconscious bias training can be a really constructive catalyst for opening up conversations, because it does apply to everyone.
It does.
Everyone has it. And
It's almost like original sin or something. Or am I getting too biblical with this belief system?
may not just recognize it, right? And so kind of that is I think it can destigmatize the conversation and de-stress it so that people don't feel like they're being targeted for
It's a
right?
safety net.
It's a safety net saying,
Right,
look, we all have it, right?
Yeah, we all have it, especially if we ask for proof, because then we need to be sent off to the re-education camps to be trained as to why it's not correct to ask for proof. I'm not quite sure what kind of conversation is going to come out of a situation where you have someone who says, hey, can you prove to me that this thing actually produces the results you say it does? And then try to discuss or converse with them out of asking for proof.
Right? So
safety
let's
net to
talk
have the
about it,
conversation.
right? So that we
So within the, if you haven't picked up the book, you probably should. Within the culture map, there's a web link that you can actually do a series of questions, like a survey, and it kind of maps you as an individual
Oh, kind of like the BDSM test? I've taken those before.
across these dimensions. And so we've used that to facilitate the discussion so that people feel comfortable about saying, you know what, here's where I do fall short, and here's where I need to be a little bit more open-minded and less judgmental.
Okay, so you use a survey test generated by a person who wrote a book to tell people whether or not they are operating correctly in the work environment insofar as bias. Even though everybody has bias, including the author of the book and the creator of the survey. And what happens, I'm curious, and I don't know if she'll say, what happens if somebody takes this survey and doesn't hit the desirable numbers? What if their individual thoughts, individual ideas, individual personality in an environment where they are to be respected for who they are? What happens if they don't align with the company culture the way they want them to? What happens to such a person, I wonder?
And, so, these tools are out there.
Yeah. And so, Amy, let's talk a little bit too, because as you mentioned, you're in, a subset of the industry, which is the construction, and it's also global, and Netflix. We're kind of all in a global footprint here, and so that's a bit of a different industry or sub-industry, and we all have the layer of having to look at it through the lens of global businesses where culture factors into it. What is diversity? What is, so
I don't even know where this lady's going. That was just a series of words. Corporate speak, everyone.
tell me what your thoughts are on some of the construction supply chain.
Yeah, it's actually very unfortunate. I was recently at an event in Ashburn, Virginia about data center construction, because we build data centers and also cable landing stations mostly.
And who does the majority of the physical labor for all that? I'm just curious.
But it was actually it was a 2-day conference, 3-day conference, and if you paid for the conference, you were able to come to the first day, which was a women's leadership summit. So this is a good story for a good example.
A women's leadership summit on the first day. Okay.
And it was included in your ticket. And there were 350 people at the conference, but only 150 people came to the first day of the Women's Leadership Summit. Now,
what was the makeup of those people? Was it mostly men by any chance? I don't know. I don't know where this is going. I'm just curious.
Men were invited. It was an open day. There were women there talking, all technical, actually. They didn't have panels where we're all talking about what it's like to be a woman in the industry, which I don't want to sit on anymore. I feel that, I don't want to hear them. Nobody wants to hear them. We're all women. We get it. It's tough. Let's figure out how to fix it. But
okay. Well, anyway, this was titled a Women's Leadership Summit. So if you're not a woman leader, maybe you didn't think that it was a panel discussion for you. Maybe it's something as simple as that.
So only 150 people came to the first day, and there were women there from Google and Netflix and finance and construction and innovate, like great women talking on these panels about really technical topics. And then you had unfettered access to these people on these panels because there weren't so many people there, right? And I thought to myself, what a shame that these, and mostly men, obviously, and they happen to be in this conference.
Mostly men happened to be at the conference? And you had a women's leadership summit? Did not many men show up? And is that an indictment of sexism?
They didn't take the opportunity to actually go, like we have a little bit of oversaturation on the topic. So they think they're just going to go to a whole day about hearing women talk about what it's like to be a woman. But
well, why else would you have a women's leadership summit? Why not just have a leadership summit? You're talking about diversity and inclusion. And in the very title of the event, you are discouraging participation or interest from the opposite gender demographic. Why not have a leadership summit absent a gender test? Wouldn't that be more inclusive than slicing off 50% of the equation, at least globally?
But they missed an incredibly technical day with access to some of the leaders in these businesses who probably would have said, like, it's great that you came today. Like, let's sit and talk for a minute. They would.
Yeah, let's sound condescending. It's so great that you showed up. If you structure something around a gender divide, you're going to have a gender divide. If you mean what you say when it comes to diversity and inclusion, you need to remove the tests or the barriers that create diversity and exclusion. Or sorry, that prevent diversity and encourage exclusion. Again, live TV.
They would have had a better business interaction even if they had really gone to that first day. Right. But they chose not to.
They chose not to, or they were discouraged not to. Which was it?
And one of the saddest things that happened to me at that event is I turned to one of the content providers on stage with myself and I said, look, it's great that you have X amount of women in your company, but I mean, what are you doing about the supply chain programs, the global supply chain diversity program, and specifically in construction for me? And she actually said, well, we leave that to our large construction partners to work out, how they're going to, deal with targeting for minority and women-owned businesses. And I thought, man, I don't know if you've noticed, but in the construction industry, we're real bad at that. So if you're looking to these guys in the construction industry to fix your supply chain diversity program, you need to rethink that.
Whoa, wait a second. Did you confront a woman asking for proof of something and a woman gave you the wrong answer? Wait, were you demanding something outside of a gender test or a belief system that everything was cool because it was being run by women? And she gave you an unsatisfactory answer? I think you need to go and see a program about unconscious bias.
Right. So I was like, maybe you at this giant content provider should think about how you should start asking for what you want, because you know it is a better supply chain if it's more diverse.
Sure.
You know you have to grow them. But
do we though? Do we know it's a better supply chain if it's more diverse? Because you just said that you wanted proof, even though she said that the supply chain was diverse. Am I taking crazy pills here, or did I just listen to her entirely contradict herself within 2 sentences? And by the way, I'm just curious. If our speaker here had been a man on that panel stage and had interrogated the other female on the stage with that exact same question, with that exact same tone, do you think that man's interrogation of that other person's claim about the supply chain would have been taken well? Or do you think it would have been seen as domineering or even mansplaining? I'm very curious to know what the answer to that question would be. I'll never get an answer, but curious nonetheless.
I always say it's like risk. Just because you push risk onto somebody else doesn't make risk go away. Just if you want to push this responsibility on somebody else doesn't make it actually happen unless you take a role.
Right.
Wait, so you're asking for proof? You're not just going to take it on faith that there are women involved, 47% women, therefore it's going to be more successful? I thought that's what you were saying this whole time. I thought that was the point of this discussion. What is your point?
Right?
Questions? I just want to make sure, raise your hands because it's a little bright up here. So I hope there'll be questions. Don't be shy.
Don't be
You can tell
scared.
nobody's shy here. So in terms of the is there a question?
Do we have any
Sorry.
questions?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Heather, go ahead. You've got a mic right there, Heather, to your right.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I appreciate your remarks, but I just think in terms of mentoring women and students, it's worth keeping in mind that this is a very broad industry that includes not only the types of jobs that you have, which are diverse within the industry, but also the legal profession, such as that people get into this field that way, and through regulation and through academic research and technical, and those are all potential career paths, and sometimes women as well as men cross over from one to another during their careers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I missed something.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. That's right.
Was that a question? Okay, sorry.
And one of the things I wanted to say, we're talking about supply chain and the interconnectedness of a lot of different industries into this, is in the legal profession, you know, it's interesting because our clients have all demanded from their outside law firms. Not only it started, it was an evolution, and the Bar Association, the American Bar Association, has been great focus on it. It initially was numbers, right? Numbers. Now it's far more nuanced and comprehensive as to inclusion, right?
What are you talking about? Your clients all demanded that you what? You hire people on the basis of what they look like? The American Bar Association is encouraging people to hire people on the basis of what they look like? You see how they never actually say what they mean? They use couched language. They kind of go around it. They never get down to the nitty-gritty of what is it you actually do to achieve these goals? What are the actual mechanisms in your hiring or your human resource departments that you employ to make these numbers or to make these aesthetics that you're so proud of?
And our many you guys may do it as well, but our clients have their own questionnaire and process, so that we went 3 years ago, I think we had 12, 15. 2 years ago, we had 35. This year, we had over 100 clients requesting individual questionnaires, and we go meet with them So that's kind of a supply chain type of
Right.
dynamic, right? Because they're demanding, and then we.
What are they demanding? A questionnaire? You haven't even said demanding what? Did I miss something? I'm curious. Seriously, did I miss something?
So I don't know whether there's been any discussion.
The legal industry, there are a lot of chief legal counsel that are women. Actually, I think it's in the 40%
Yeah,
of some of the
right.
top companies, 47% I read.
Wait. 47% of lawyers are women? What? How? I thought all these male-dominated industries were preventing women from even achieving such a thing. I thought, because if I believe everything you guys are telling me half the time, women should not be able to do anything, ever, because men stop them.
I think your point of your comment is important
I'm still wondering what the point of her comment was.
because I'm actually part of a group called iMasons, and one of the initiatives we're doing.
Wait, you're one of the Masons? Oh God, no! The eye in the pyramid
is the faces of this industry. And it's not just about construction or content providers. There's a lot of people in legal, there's marketing, there's manufacturing, there's tech, there's journalists. There are, all kinds of people in this industry that we need to show the faces of those people. Because again, it's about, there are a lot of jobs we have to fill in order to be, it's more about industry sustainability really than D&I at this point, right?
What are you even talking about?
So we have to show that there is a lot of opportunity here to educate people about what our industry actually is and where the crossovers are so that you can enter easily if you want to. I think we're also not talking too much about like the mentoring thing. It's oversaturated for me. Believe me, I got plenty of people that tell me what I should and shouldn't do in the space, for the record.
Yeah, like you did to that lady on that panel discussion regarding supply chain. I mean, you're one of those people, aren't you? And don't you want diversity of thought, or are you just dismissing other people's ideas because they're not yours? Are we being diverse and inclusive when it comes to ideas, or aren't we?
I need sponsors. I need other women that help each other and men that help women that will put their reputation on the line to get us jobs, to change promotion, get promotions for people, opportunities. I really want to focus on sponsorship than mentorship for my.
Are you going to put your reputation on the line for someone simply on the basis of their gender? Would you put your reputation on the line for someone simply on the basis of what they look like? Would you ask no other questions? Would you do no other interrogation about the merit someone possesses towards a position or a job or an opportunity? Would you be willing to put your reputation on the line for no other reason than the aesthetic? Because if you're not, then the majority of what you're talking about or criticizing others for makes no sense.
Myself and mentoring and sponsoring others. But we have to really promote and see what's out there in the space right now and take a hard look, because it's about industry sustainability. If not, we won't be able to keep growing. I mean, we're growing at such an unbelievable pace right now that we need people in the space. They have to know about it.
Well, why do you need other people? If you're growing at an unbelievable pace right now, everything you're doing must be perfect. Right? I mean, there should be no reason to be worried about it. Because you've cracked the code. You know the answer. You've got the business case. Or am I misunderstanding something?
And so,
Please.
Joe, I just want to add to that. I think there's a responsibility on the individuals as well.
What? Personal responsibility? Okay. Because before, the personal responsibility of asking for proof was a problem because they weren't aligning with the culture of anti-bias. Do tell.
And I think I call it bridging, and I call it really understanding how your skill sets bridge to other disciplines within the context of the industry itself. And I think that
the merits of your abilities and how they overlap in other places for potential other job opportunities. Wow, that's an innovative way of thinking about it.
That sometimes we're so conditioned to think that we're a software developer and that's kind of like the track. And having spent the last 5 years or so in human resources, what I find is that not many people really think outside the box
Right.
on how their skill sets bridge into other areas.
Okay, that is a valid point. That is true. I have seen that myself in many companies and in many jobs where someone has, something about what they're doing actually is an overlap somewhere else, and maybe there's other opportunities or other areas of the business to get involved in. Fine. That's completely valid. What does that have to do with gender? Or any other aesthetic element of someone?
And that's really, really important. And that's not the responsibility of the men
No.
or the
Whoa, what?
corporations.
Wait. The men? I mean, we were almost onto something productive there for a second about talking about someone's personal merits, the overlap of skill sets. Had nothing to do with gender. But you're talking about women, aren't you? You're not talking about people. You're not talking about employees. You're talking about women who are apparently so focused on one particular thing that unless the women take the initiative, the men aren't going to help them. Amazing.
To create that environment. It's a matter of creating an inclusive environment that allows you to be comfortable enough to make that jump and to bridge it.
You know what's funny about that?
You have to make a culture where someone's comfortable enough to take personal initiative. Because it's not the responsibility of the men or the corporation to show you how your skills may overlap elsewhere for other opportunities. Okay.
That I hear, we all hear, like, let's go out to the schools and universities. I never hear, almost never, groups saying like, hey, there are a lot of women in the workforce when they take a break for their kids that have to re-enter an industry that have skill set that we need. We should, instead of there, by the way, you much quicker up to bring them up to speed, a woman that's been, raising her kids or a man for,
or a man. Wait. Why is that an afterthought? Why not just say parents? If you actually mean to be inclusive in what you're talking about, why not just say parents? Why not just have a leadership summit? You are the one excluding people on the basis of gender. Let's make no bones about this. You are the one introducing gender bias into what you're talking about.
5 or 6 years to bring them back into this or to bring them to a new industry with skills than for me to wait 20 years for my 11-year-old to get here. You know what I mean? Like, I rarely ever hear people talking about a targeted program for re-entering the workforce and maybe bringing those people to our space.
Yeah, people re-entering the workforce after taking time off for family. I'm sure that's never been thought of before or considered. I'm sure there are no laws about that or any other programs or any other initiatives in any other companies about making use of people who have the experience but had to take time off for family situations. Yeah, that's never been done before. Currently not being done. How innovative. Also, depending on how long they were out of the industry, their knowledge may have gone stale. So there may be a cost to training somebody up back from where they were. And that cost may or may not be offset if they go for somebody who's been training in the workforce the whole time without having dropped out for family. I don't know, but maybe there's a business case there somewhere.
One quick question. We only have a minute left. Go ahead.
It comes down to actually the effect you were talking about in your conference, and I'm personally interested because I'm on the program planning committee, is the backfiring effect. And I'll give you an example. This morning, there was the Verizon Women's Power Panel breakfast thing, and I was here. And if it had just been marketed as, here's 4 or 5 brilliant people talking about what's going on with advanced technologies like, balloon-based stratospheric communications and 5G, then I think things would have been more packed. And so
Yes.
Yeah,
the
I
whole
agree.
thing about saying, it's only appealing if you're from the state of Dakota, this gender, this age, means that there was lower attendance. So I'm curious on your thoughts on, is this just all backfiring, really?
Oh, exactly. The guy read my mind from the past into the future. What was I saying? Oh, brilliant. I cannot wait to hear their answers to this. Because just like our lady on the far right was saying about the Women's Leadership Summit, about mothers taking time off to take care of their children, and onward and onward. First pertinent, relevant, good question, and probably the only one we'll get. What do you guys think about the framing of these events, the framing of these situations or these programs inherently excluding people from taking an interest? Why call it a women's leadership summit? Why call it a women in tech summit? Why call it a women innovators summit? Why not just call it a leadership summit, an innovators summit? Why not be more inclusive when you structure these things? Why not be more inviting than dividing? Let's hear the answer.
No, I don't know if it's backfiring as much as it is, again, creating a dialogue and an environment where it's inclusive. I don't, you can't continue to have programs where we're talking to each other, right? You're talking to the converted. And so I totally agree with you. I think that we need to kind of not necessarily highlight ourselves as being this group.
But that's just what you did. That's what you've been saying this whole time. What are you even talking about? You agree with him, but it's not backfiring. The whole point of his question was to say that the very focus on things like gender or any other aesthetic component of people and framing these programs, framing these events, the very one that you're sitting at, the one the other lady was talking about, by telling people, by advertising and marketing these things as, this is for women, this is for women, and then being amazed that men aren't participating in the ways that you would want. Well, but you said it's not backfiring. Now, I don't know what this particular conference was called. I know what the video was called. I don't know what this particular one was branded as. But even the panelists said that there weren't a lot of women in the audience. It was mostly men. Okay, well, how was this panel branded? I don't agree that it's backfiring. Well, you're not getting the results that you want, right? I mean, we just had the lady on the right talking about how this women's leadership conference and none of the men were there. And boy, they would have benefited from talking about these things. So you agree with the guy's question, even though you disagree with his premise. Okay.
That people need to.
Right.
Look, I'll say it like this, Joe. All of you in this room, smartest people at this conference right now. Right?
Oh my God. Everybody who didn't show up, you're stupid. So everybody in here, you can go out there, and if you see somebody that wasn't in this room, you can tell them they're stupid.
Right? Raise your hand. You think because I think you're the smartest people in this conference. Why? You know what will make people keep coming? When somebody walks up and does business with her or with myself, or we find some connection here and someone's like, where did you meet them? They're like, I went to the women's panel, and it's some man that came and met somebody because no one else cares to come. Be the smartest one in the room and use it as your advantage. Come and do business at these things and we'll all have them. It won't matter.
That was probably the most snarky, condescending thing she could have said. And tell me again about your initiative for inclusion by telling everybody in the room that they're smarter than the people that didn't show up. Jesus Christ.
On that note, we're going to have to end. We've run out of time. It's never enough time, but I hope you'll join me in thanking both Gina and Amy for their insights and contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm not sure what to say after that. The setting aside all of the inherent contradictions to the things that they said of themselves within a sentence or two of each other, that last and very pertinent question really underscored the absolute nonsense of what they say versus what they mean. Do you want a diverse and inclusive workforce? Well, if you're not attending this conference, you're stupid. Do you want an inclusive environment? Well, brand everything by gender or race or orientation. Divvy people up on the basis of things other than merit, and that will increase inclusion. It's not inherently divisive or segregatory. I don't know. I don't know, guys. You heard everything I heard. I feel so much more educated now. And boy, oh boy, would I really want to attend a conference with thinking like that. I think I'd learn so very much. But as we wrap this up, I'll go to the chat. Any lurkers, anybody want to have a shout out? Any questions, comments, or anything else? I will go over them now. Scroll up a little bit. Jedi Ghost Bear, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Jay Hess, hello. Angela Ariaga, hello. Dectron, hello. Lamented Guide, hello. Yeah, I don't know, guys. Every time, like I say, and I've talked about this before, there was a great panel discussion, of course, with Christopher Hitchens several years ago, and obviously because he's passed away now. But he was on a stage, and I believe he was with Sam Harris, and he was with a couple of religious leaders or scholars, and somebody asked him about why he does these sort of debates. And he said something to the effect of, well, I don't go thinking that I'm going to be saying something all that interesting because my arguments never really change because the questions remain the same. But it's the thing about the religious, he said, you never know what they're going to say next. And from panel discussion to panel discussion on diversity and inclusion, I keep finding them fascinating because I honestly never know what they're going to say next between their definitions of diversity or inclusion, or what they say are the benefits of it, or what their arguments are against doubt, as we saw here. It's always fascinating. Lamented Guide says, Scribe Light Monkey says hi. Well, hi, Monkey, from a distance. Del Fruit Zero says, Scribe Light, you have been missed. Well, only because your aim was off. No one, nowhere. Thanks for the stream. You're welcome. Check Your Logic. It's over. Yeah, it was only a 25-minute talk. It wasn't a long one. I added on an extra hour or so in my analysis, such as it was. So, Asian Hippie says, every time I watch one of these, 100 million brain cells die. I'll counter that. I'll counter that by saying and I know I've talked about this before, and maybe some of you will disagree. I think there's a benefit to openly exposing yourself to the possibility of an idea you may not agree with, you know, and I'm not meaning to sound condescending, but it's, I never want to assume I'm in the right on something or that I know everything about something. There's been plenty of these talks where I've seen someone say something like Margie Lee Johnson. And I know that the Margie Lee Johnsons of the world are a rare and unfortunately rare breed, but they are out there. It does give me hope that people can see the reason amidst all the chaff. But at the same time, it does give you an insight into the kinds of things that are going on in corporate America. This one dealt mainly with tech and Netflix and that kind of thing. But it's reflective of a lot of things going on in corporations these days and legal departments, etc. And so I think it's beneficial to be informed. to not be taken by surprise by some of these things when they do inevitably, I think, bubble up into your real life. That's kind of the benefit I see from it. Grisella, hello. Zombie Teddy, Scribe, how do you get into these panel talks, TED Talks? It's just sort of the random chance of things I come across when I'm looking for content, looking for interesting things to watch. Like, I mean, for every TEDx talk that I do a video on, I've watched 3 or 4 in addition, or at least watched enough to know what they were talking about. Some I found interesting. The rare case I've posted onto Twitter and recommended to actually watch. But the panel discussions, you just come across them sometimes, talking about social justice, talking about diversity, inclusion, talking about feminism, talking about politics or social movements or things like that. And some of them are long and dry and boring. And then some of them are long and dry and boring, but they're entertaining for some of the interesting things people say. Now, of course, the ones that you're watching with me live, I haven't watched myself, so they're all surprises. But I'd say, I might be wrong, but I'd say to this point, there hasn't been a panel discussion I've looked at here that I didn't find something interesting to say about it. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Let's see. And Piccolo says they have them live here once in a while. Yeah, the panel discussions, town hall meetings, city council meetings, things like that. Some things are far more procedural and slow. These panel discussions tend to be fairly fast-paced, especially if you have a moderator who is at least partially knows what they're doing. Or even if they don't, if you go back to the uncanny Womixman video I did a while back. Gayest person on YouTube, is the long and boring mixed in with buzzwords a bug or a feature to these panels? It's filler oftentimes. I think, I don't anticipate, if I was on a panel, I wouldn't know exactly what to say about everything. I'd probably descend into just babble at a certain point just to fill in the space, or to buy myself some mental time to come up with something better to say. I don't hold that against people. Everybody does it to a certain extent, depending on the circumstances. But in these ones in particular, where they're contradicting themselves within 2 breaths, it seems like a necessity. Because I'm not sure they know what to say when someone says, I would like proof of what you claim. And then they have to somehow find a way to not provide that proof and still push the belief that everything they say is true. So, okay, Angela Arriga says, I was actually waiting for this since Scribe said he was doing it last night, so I'm a bit miffed, so I'll have to watch it later. Sorry, I like I say, if I do these, I'll just say this. If I do these, I will make every attempt to do them at the same time on a Sunday, and that's 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern time. If that changes for some reason, I'll either not do it, or I'll make sure I put plenty of Twitter out to notify. And I know this is always kind of short notice. They're kind of impulsive, but this is the time frame I always aim for. So if you're thinking, gosh, is Scribe going to do a live stream today? I wasn't able to watch the show last night to get a notice or anything. Check my Twitter. Sunday around 8 a.m. is when I'm going to do them, if I do them at all. And that's the best I can give you. I'm not going to do them every weekend necessarily, but that's when I will do them if I am going to do them. Anyway, guys, Adabisi, hello. Thank you all for joining me this morning on this very informative, entertaining, contradictory, cognitive dissonance extravaganza. I will be back on Lords of the Night per usual again tomorrow night on Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on Satsu's channel. And so there you go. Everybody, hope you have a good rest of your Sunday. Take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.